So we're on. Good evening. This is Joseph Mulla of Watchdogs Family Protection Services. We operate out of the state of West Virginia. We're licensed. Uh, Basically, what we do is we help people navigate through their situations with CPS and the court system and things of that nature. And through our, investigations, we've noticed that a lot of people, they're just not being treated properly. The judges aren't following the laws, and there's really no recourse. So what we're doing here is we're attempting to give people the impressions, at least, that they do have some kind of a way out. And that's why we formulated this organization, to give people a way to discuss their issues with CPS and to vent and perhaps come up with different ideas. At the end of the day, when everything's all said and done, it comes down to the politicians, because they make the final decisions as to what to do with the lower courts, like circuit courts, the guardian ad litems, the judges, you name it, CPS. So we have an interesting individual today. His name is Marshall Williams. He's a gubernatorial candidate for the state of West Virginia, and I like him. I mean, I met him one time at a rally, and he had some interesting things to talk about in relation to his belief system, how he understands government, how it should be ran. He has a lot of experience. One thing I like about him, he's an Army, he's a retired combat infantry officer, so he served his country honorably. And I'd like to invite him onto this podcast. And how you doing, Marshall?
Hey, Joe. Thanks for making time for me. If I may, I'm not picking on you or anything, but it's Wilson, not Williams. That's all right.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. I know.
It's my fault.
I don't mean to make you.
God.
But thank you very much.
I'm looking right at your card on the side. Let me put it in front of me.
Thank you very much for making time.
Marshall, why don't you tell the people not a problem. Why don't you tell people what kind of experience you have what kind of background you had that would make you suitable to be governor?
Well, I'm a retired combat veteran U.S. Army infantry officer with a background in strategic and operational planning, as well as running intelligence and operations fusion cells when I'm not commanding troops in combat. I commanded the company that provided security for all Allied special operators in the nation of Iraq in 2010. I have a master's degree in national security. I'm working on my PhD. I teach at Liberty University online. I'm currently on hiatus from that, but I teach in their master's program in military operations. I teach command leadership, battlefield analysis, and military analysis, and then also asymmetric warfare. So,
wow.
If you don't think that asymmetric warfare is being conducted against you right now, then you're not paying attention. Which is
you got that right.
Yes, sir.
Coming at it from every angle.
I have served 2 terms in the West Virginia House of Delegates. I was elected both times as a Republican. And halfway through my second term, I was told by the state chair of the West Virginia Republican Party that the West Virginia Republican Party does not want people like me. I asked her what she meant. She talking about short guys with big heads who talk too much. And she said, no, all you do is run around spouting the Constitution at everyone all the time. And I said, is that a problem for you, ma'am? Because that is exactly what I do. And she said, well, we can't get anything done. I said, outstanding. Hallelujah. I'm doing my job. And she asked me to leave the party, told me that they didn't want people like me in the Republican Party. So I'm now with the Constitution Party. And good group of folks. It's small. It's new. It's flexible and working hard. And they are pushing hard to actually elect candidates, and this is a national party, to elect candidates in every state who will actually execute their oath to uphold the Constitution. I spent 20 years in the infantry doing it, and 4 years in the West Virginia House of Delegates doing exactly that. And I will never back down. And the reason I won't back down is because I have 9 kids. And my entire purpose in life is to ensure that my kids can raise their kids in a free country. And thank God, I am partnered with a woman who gets it, who gets me, who doesn't put up with my mess, but who at the same time recognizes the importance of the mission, She's a retired Navy captain. She's way smarter than I am, and she holds me accountable to the truth that we both know.
Speaking of mission, you were a missionary, were you not?
Yes, sir. I'm an ordained Southern Baptist preacher. I was a church planting missionary in the Peruvian Amazon. I taught systematic theology. I trained pastors. I was engaged in the process of starting churches and had trained a number of pastors. And unfortunately, I couldn't stay in Peru because my first wife left me there with a bunch of kids to take care of. So I had to come back to the United States, and unfortunately was not able to bring home with me at that time the Peruvian twins that we were in the process of adopting. So they were stuck in Peru, and I couldn't stay in Peru, and I came back to the United States and had to find a job to feed my 9 kids. And I couldn't be a preacher anymore because, I'm divorced. So had to go looking for a job, and the only place I could find one that would actually provide what I needed was back into the Army after 11 years as a civilian. So as a 38-year-old man with 9 kids, I went back into the Army as an infantry first lieutenant. Shortly thereafter, made captain, was given a company command, and sent to Iraq.
That's quite a crew, 9 children. I come from a family of 10 children. Believe me, it takes a lot of organizational skills to run a family that large. It really does, especially.
Sometimes we were organized, and other times we kind of muddled through.
Yeah, I hear you, but the thing is, children. Like I said, I'm with Watchdogs Family Protection Services. I'm all about the American family, and so are you. Obviously, we're all about family, whether from America or otherwise. It doesn't really matter. And what we're finding out, Marshall, is that our leaders literally have abandoned the American family, and I'm talking at grassroots level.
Well, I think this is an important concept here. And I don't mean to be pedantic, but I am. I'm terribly pedantic, and I think that each word has a specific meaning. We have to use it the way it's supposed to be used. They are not our leaders. They are.
I hear you.
They are our subjects. They are our employees. They are our messengers. They are our step and fetchits. They are not our leaders. We hire people to do our bidding, not the other way around.
And you're absolutely right, Marshall, because the thing is they work for us.
Yes, sir.
Not the other way around. And I had Patrick Morrissey. I heard him say a while ago that his position is that he is in office to protect the interest of the state and not the people. Now, let me tell you something. That's a turnoff to me. That's a turnoff to me.
He's absolutely wrong. He's referring to a section of the Constitution which discusses that idea, but there is a further idea, which is if the people have cause against the state, he represents the people. Because
absolutely.
Because all government exists for one purpose and one purpose only, which is to secure the natural rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness of each citizen of that state. Now, I'm using the term state in the classical sense to mean any government entity, right? So the city, the state government, the federal government, whatever, it exists for one purpose, and that is to secure your natural rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and otherwise leave you alone. So anytime the people have cause against the government is simply an implement that the people created to secure their rights. We own this thing, right? So when I was a delegate,
absolutely.
When I was a delegate, and Jim Justice was lording it over the people of the state by issuing executive orders to his employers, to his bosses, we the people, it was ludicrous. And the fact that the rest of the West Virginia state government simply went along with that was madness. And one particular thing that should have been evidently madness to everyone else was the fact that he unilaterally and unconstitutionally moved the date of the primary. He simply said, nah, if we vote in May, everybody's going to die, so we're going to vote in June instead. He can't do that. He has no authority to do that. But your entire government sat on their hands and said, okie dokie, yes, sir. They're completely wrong. So I actually, I took him to the West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals. I filed a petition for writ of mandamus to compel him to follow the Constitution. And Pat Morrissey defended him. And I went to see Pat Morrissey and I said, "Hey, Pat, you know you're wrong." And his response was, "So sue me." And I said,
Yeah, that's how they responded.
I said,
They're so indoctrinated.
I said, "You know that you're wrong." And he said, "My job is to defend the governor from all legal actions." I said, "You are mistaken. Your job is to secure the natural rights of each individual citizen of this state, as is the purpose for every other functionary in this government, is to secure the natural rights of each member of this state, each citizen of this state." And he said, "My job is to secure the government, is to protect the government against all legal actions." I said, "What if it's a legal action brought by the people through their elected representatives to hold the governor accountable for tyranny?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Your job is to defend tyranny against the people of this state." And he said, "If they bring case against the government for it, it is my job to defend it." I said, "So your job is to defend a tyrannical government?" He said, "Yes, to defend the government."
I guess they don't really listen to the words when they take their oath.
I don't think they understand what
I
words mean, and I don't think they care. Jeremy.
and the really sad part about it is that same mentality is permeated through the legal system, because even the judges and guardian ad litems and the people involved in our lives, primarily CPS in our lives, they have that same mentality. They are there to protect the interest of their narrative.
Right. Well,
and they don't care who they destroy in the process.
They believe that they are our leaders. They sincerely believe that.
They do. But see, we're trained, as individuals, we're trained to believe, because that's all we're taught from kids. They're our leaders, and really, at the end of the day, we lead ourselves, and we have government that kind of keeps us in line. I get that. We have to have some form of government. But the bottom line is,
government does not keep us in line. Government does not keep us in line. Government secures our individual
stop sign.
That's all the government does.
Yeah, I agree. So if you became governor, what would you do exactly to change the status quo, if you will?
Well, as I've said a number of times, and I'm not being smart aleck because I haven't necessarily said it a number of times to you, but a lot of folks who are listening right now have heard me say this. I will audit every single department, every single office, every single function of the executive branch to ensure that it's functioning, first of all, according to the constitutions of the United States and of the state of West Virginia. Secondly, according to the requirements of the legislation that created and that monitors that department. Thirdly, according to good fiscal responsibility. Fourthly, according to good operational procedures and policies. And fifthly, according to good personnel policy. In other words, they have to actually hire people based on their capability to do the job and no other reason. If one person's better doing a job, they get promoted. Nothing else. So also, I would like to train the entire executive branch to provide great customer service to its employers.
Yeah, you got that right. That's what we need. One major complaint.
It starts with the audit, and then of course, based on the information that I receive from the audit of each of these departments, the next step is to issue executive orders and policy changes, as well as making personnel changes as required within those executive departments to actually update their operations to comply with those principles. Now, I want to be clear about this because I mentioned executive orders a while ago. The chief executive issues executive orders to the executive departments, to the executive branch, not to the people. That is an internal executive branch order. So anything that I can change simply by issuing my will to the executive departments, I will do. The next step would be anything that I can't change simply by updating policy or personnel or procedures. The next step is to go to the legislature and propose changes to legislation to actually restructure those departments to function more according to the Constitution and constitutional principles. If the legislature refuses to help out with that, what I will do is I will stand up publicly, look you in the eye and say, "Hi, I'm Governor Wilson. We had this problem in this department. We've discussed this before. I explained to you my plan about how to fix it. I've proposed the legislation that I told you I was going to propose. And this delegate or this senator in this committee is the chairman of that committee, and he is the one who prevented that legislation from going through and from your being satisfied as a citizen of this state that you are being treated justly. This guy right here, by the way, here's a map of his district. This is where he lives and works.
I love it.
Here's
That's
here's his
that's what we
office phone
want.
number. Here is his office email address. Please contact him and let him know what you think about him killing this legislation that prevented you from receiving justice. The next
Very
step
good.
is,
Oh, go
well,
ahead.
I'm dead serious about it too. The next step is that we take it to the Supreme Court, the West Virginia Supreme Court. And if the West Virginia Supreme Court fails us, I will literally, you realize that we elect our Supreme Court judges in West Virginia. They're not appointed. So the next step is I'll do the same thing with Supreme Court justices. I'll stand up and say, hi, I'm Governor Wilson. Your Supreme Court refused to give you justice on this matter. Here is the justice. Well, obviously it's going to be a couple of them, but here are the justices who voted against giving you justice in this matter. And here's how you get a hold of them. And by the way, this one's up for election next year. And this one's up for election in 2 years. And it's time to start finding people to replace them so they'll actually give you justice. And I'm dead serious about it.
I like that. One of the major issues we have in my industry is one of the major complaints is accountability. And
Yes.
it sounds to me that what you're going to be addressing is the concept of accountability, making people accountable for their actions, getting rid of people that aren't doing the right thing.
Responsibility. Yes, sir. Individual responsibility and individual accountability. As a matter of fact, I would go further with that, and I will propose legislation to hold people in corporations, people who are in organizations, people who are in the government from hiding behind those organizations and actually being accountable for their actions.
Wow. I like that.
I mean, I did 20 years in the infantry. Okay. You didn't just say, oh, well, this unit failed. Why did this unit fail? Where are the points of failure? And who is responsible for each of those points? Who is accountable? All right, so we're going to hold that person accountable. First thing we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, gosh, you messed up. Let me help you figure out how to do this better. And if you don't figure out how to do it better, if you don't do what we figure out you need to do, the next thing will be that I'm going to put you on notice. Oh, and by the way, if you continue in this way, you need to go find somewhere else to excel because you won't have that opportunity here.
As a business owner for over 40 years, that's how I ran my business.
Of course you did.
If I ran my business the way the government runs, I would have been bankrupt years ago.
Yeah. Well,
so
if I
there's
had
no
run my organizations as an infantry officer, if I had run my organization, my operations that way, a lot of people would have died.
Absolutely. It's life and death. And,
really,
really, Marshall, what's going on right now is a life and death organization.
It absolutely is.
For a lot of people. It really is.
Government is always a life or death issue. Government is nothing. If you read the Bible, government is nothing but a sword. That's all it is. It is not a means of provision. It is not nice. It is not here to help you or to save you or to make everything wonderful for you. Government is here for one purpose. It is a sword used to destroy the destroyer. That's it. The entire purpose is is to secure your natural rights. And how does it secure your natural rights? By destroying those who would infringe upon your natural rights.
Absolutely.
That's it. It's really that simple. And if you want to use the government,
they're doing that more so now than ever.
Yes.
They really are attacking our freedoms. They're not giving us choices.
Why are they doing that?
They're just saying, this is the way it is. You don't like it tough.
Why are they doing that?
So, again, honestly, I mean, there's lots of theories. I'm sure you have one of your own.
There's one reason. There's one reason. They do that because all men are corrupt.
Probably.
They do that because all men are corrupt. And what are you going to do about it?
Well, I'm doing my part as far as, helping people navigate through the insanities of what the government presents in terms of family cases. And obviously, you're trying to do your part. If you became governor, obviously the landscape would change considerably because our governor right now I would say at least 95% of the people that call up the governor's office to make a complaint, it never reaches the governor's office. It's put down to a lower office, and it's just thrown into the garbage as though it doesn't even matter. What's happening right now, at least in our situation, this is systemic. It's
Yes.
happening in every state.
Yes.
Every single governor of every single state is acting just like Governor Justice. They're not doing anything. They're not doing their job.
And you know why? Because what are you going to do about it? It's really that simple.
Well, the only thing I could tell the people out there, the only thing I can do about it is vote for people like you.
That's not really doing about it.
Well, it's a good start. It's a good start.
And it's a good start, and I'm honored. But frankly, we have been in the mindset that if we just elect the right guys, everything will be fine. And that's obviously not working for us. If I just vote for the guys in my club's the better club than the other club. My particular club of the political cartel is the good guys, and it's malarkey. None of that is true. The way that you do this is as a responsible citizen. We were talking about individual responsibility a while ago. You are responsible for your grandchildren's future. I am responsible for my grandchildren's future. Yeah. And the way that we do that is we not only try to vote for the right guys, we try to choose which guys vote. We don't let the parties tell us who's going to be the candidate or which guys we can vote for. We don't let the parties tell us who the candidate's going to be. That's madness. They have completely different principles, priorities, and agendas than we have. They are not interested in what makes sense to us, what we care about, what we need, what we want. It has nothing to do with that. And they will ensure that you get the candidate who will eat your lunch rather than defend your rights. They are absolutely going to do that because that is what gives them power. And that's all they care about. So you don't let them choose your candidate for you. You choose your own candidate. You become a candidate. You get out there and fight. And then when someone is elected, you hold that clown accountable for every single word that falls out of his mouth, every single action, every single gesture, every single vote, whether it's on a procedural issue or whether it's on an amendment or whether it's on a bill as amended, final vote on a bill, whether it's on approving the governor's appointees, whatever it is, you hold these clowns accountable. You make it unpleasant to be a member of the government. You stop treating them like they're your leaders. When I was in the House of Delegates, I would have citizens would come in to see their delegates or their senators. And I think you probably have people from outside the state. So let me explain. A delegate in West Virginia and Virginia and Maryland, that's what we call our state representatives. So the lower house of the state legislature. But anyway, I would see these citizens come in and they would say, "Oh, Delegate Smith, gosh, I know you're busy. Thanks for making time for me. You're such a wonderful man for listening to lowly old Bob the farmer." And I would stand there and I would say, "Bob, he's lowly. I'm lowly because I'm a delegate. You are the king. You are the sovereign power in this land. Stop acting like you're kissing somebody's shoes. You come in here and you tell us to kiss your shoes. You tell us what you want. You tell us what it's going to cost us if we don't obey, not the other way around." And, normally what the citizen would say is, "My God, why would you talk that way? Aren't you a legislator? Don't you want people to serve you?" I said, "No, because I want my kids to be free. It doesn't matter how people treat me. I want my kids to be free. And the only way that's ever going to happen is if we, the people, hold these clowns in these marble mausoleums that they call capitals, unless we hold them accountable. Quit playing games with them. Quit letting them be your leaders. They are not. They're your messenger boys. They're your trash men. That's all they are."
Yeah, I remember growing up, Marshall, we had obviously several elections growing up. My parents were pretty political, and we always had debates. From small town mayors to everyone, there was always debates. People always wanted to know what each candidate had to say, and it seems like the debate system here in West Virginia, at least, is dead. I mean, I don't even know I really don't even know who all the gubernatorial candidates are.
Why should they, Joe? Why should they debate? Why should they debate? Because what are you going to do about it? Why should they debate? You've got two parties. They've got their candidates. You vote for your club. There happen to be more in one club than the other. That guy's going to win. And if you tell people that there are actually 5 gubernatorial candidates right now that are going to be on your ballot, I don't know how many write-ins there'll be. There could be a number of them. I don't know. But there are 5 gubernatorial candidates who are actually going to be on your ballot. You can choose any one of the 5. And at least 2 of them have some brains,
Yeah,
but they're not the
unfortunately.
Republican or the Democrat.
Yeah, and that's really the point I was trying to make, is that how do you know if you don't have a better deal? Like, for instance, with you, the general public's not going to know that much about you because there's no debates. And I guarantee if there were debates, you would have a lot more votes because a lot more people will understand what you stand for.
Well, I
And
appreciate
so,
that, Joe. And so, from my understanding, what happened was the West Virginia Broadcasters Association, which is the organization that normally would host a gubernatorial debate, issued invitations to the Republican and the Democrat and to no one else. And the Republican and the Democrat both said, no, thank you. We don't want to debate. Now, why would you not want to debate? The only reason that I can possibly imagine is because you don't want people to know who you really are. You're hiding something.
absolutely,
You're afraid.
absolutely.
You know, the only reason for not stepping up on a stage as someone who intends to lead the executive branch of the government that serves the people of West Virginia, to refuse to step forward and say, this is who I am, this is what I believe, this is my character, these are my capabilities, and this is my intent, this is what I will do. The only reason not to do that is because you are a coward, because you are hiding.
Absolutely. And the biggest question for me is, what is your record? I mean, we have guys that are like Morrissey. Okay, obviously he's been a politician for quite a few years. What has he done that's so significant that you would have the confidence in him to have him as, our chief executive? What has he done?
Well, there are a couple of things he's accomplished, but frankly, they're just the attorney general doing his job.
Yeah,
It would be
but the
like
thing
if,
is,
yeah, it would be like if I, my wife occasionally asked me to clean the kitchen floor, because, I live there too, and it's probably me spilling the coffee on the floor anyway. And how do you think she would respond? My wife's a very sober and intelligent lady. If one day I got up and I swept and I mopped the kitchen floor and then I danced around with a little jingle playing in the background and said, I cleaned the floor, I cleaned the floor, she would think I was an idiot. And frankly, that is pretty idiotic. But Pat Morrissey is one of the most talented, capable, and focused self-promoters I've ever met in my life.
yeah,
He will do the simplest, most commonplace part of his job and then dance around singing about what a wonderful guy he is. And people buy it. People buy it. Things that for me were just part of my job as a company commander in Iraq. I was given the Bronze Star for my service over there. Honest to God, I still don't know why. I just did my job. And I barely did that sometimes. I gave it everything I had, and sometimes it was more than I could handle. It was a rough job. But I don't go dancing around singing about it. If somebody asks me what I did in Iraq, I say, I did my best. And sometimes other people had to carry the load because I didn't get the job done. But this guy will barely do his job, and then he goes dancing around and singing about how he's the best person who ever lived. It's sad.
well, see, the point I was trying to make is, regardless of who's running for office, I really don't know his accomplishments. I don't know anything about Patrick. I'm not a big political person, which most blue collar people aren't. So all I'm asking for is, what has he done? Show me what you actually stand for, what you're going to do in the future. Just like what you're talking about, pretty much flipping things, inside out, if you had to clean up the cesspool we have today. Is he willing to do that? Because from what I understand, he hasn't done that as Attorney General.
No, as a matter of fact, he has defended it. It's really funny. If you actually go back and look at his statements, he's constantly talking about how he's fighting the corrupt Democrats in D.C. And I have on various occasions said, what about the corrupt Republicans in Charleston? And I never get an answer because he's one of them.
Yeah, the problem is we are so divided in this country right now, and it's like, and people really do believe there's only 2 parties. And from that standpoint, they have no resolve, because They're
If I
thinking,
had my way, there wouldn't be any parties. That's what George Washington
yeah,
said. In his
yeah,
farewell address, George Washington very clearly said, "Do not allow parties to become a permanent part of your political life, because they will insinuate themselves." Now this is martialized, this is paraphrased, but what he said was, they will insinuate themselves between the government and the people who created that government to serve them. And ultimately, instead of the government serving the people will end up serving the parties. He said it very clearly.
which is exactly what's happening. It's exactly what's happening because right now the people really believe, okay, that one party is better than the other and that they actually work for things in their favor. And when you break it down, neither party really has done anything for me personally. You know, I'm
Okay, so
fighting both parties.
let's clarify that we're talking about the party structure, the party, quote, leadership, and not the
Yeah.
individual citizens who have registered as members of that party so they can vote, because
Yeah,
they are a completely different group. So the simple fact of the matter is that it is not red versus blue. This paradigm is false. It is not conservative versus Democrat. This paradigm is false. It is not Republican versus Democrat. This paradigm is profoundly false. It is oligarchs versus we the people. It is the people who want to own you as slaves and own your children as farm animals versus you and your children. That's what's really going on here. And we the people need to get our stuff straight, because they're all working together. The oligarchs are on the same sheet of music, and they're running us down. And we the people need to quit arguing with each other about silly stuff and stand up for our liberties and stand up for the rights and liberties of our children and grandchildren. We need to take away from the government the power to turn us into slaves, rather than trying to constantly get our hands on the levers of power to use that power of the government against the people we disagree with in our society. It's got to happen, or we're all lost.
It's funny how you use the phrase farm animals, because CPS itself actually refers to children as units. They don't call them, they call them units. We have 5,000 units over here, 10,000 units over here. You know, I never felt more like a farm animal than now.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men, all human beings are created equal, and they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And by God, it had better start with the ones who can't speak up for themselves.
So how would you go about speaking for those that are not being treated properly? What would you do? What specifically would you do as governor?
I would audit that department, find out what's going on, and then hold every single person accountable for it.
Is that all? I mean, not that's a big thing.
Is that all?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's huge.
I'm talking about investigating the broken system, finding those who are accountable, and holding them responsible.
I guess that probably would do the trick. I mean, that's how it
works. Whether that means I have to fire them, or whether it means that they have to go to jail, or whatever it means, but we are going to hold them accountable. And that's the only way to ensure that these kids are secure, and that these injustices committed against families do not continue.
Was there anything that specifically happened to you in your life that caused you to want to be governor, or is it just your lifestyle? I mean, what you observed? What makes you want to be governor?
Well, I don't. The bottom line is, I don't want to be governor. I don't want to be involved in politics. I want to go sit out in a cabin in the woods and drink coffee and read books and maybe write a couple of books. That's what I really want to do. You know, and have my kids visit me on a regular basis and bring the grandkids. We don't have any grandkids yet, but I don't know what the holdup is. Anyway, that's what I really want. You know, I'm ready to go. I love to read. I like to write. I like to listen to good music. That's what I want to do with my life, but they won't let me. If they would stop poking me in the eye, I would go sit in the woods and read books. But they insist on poking me nonstop in the eye. So basically, I came home from Iraq. I was injured, so I had some time to sit around, you know, doing nothing, waiting to not be injured anymore. I was on convalescent leave. And a buddy of mine said, hey, let's go down to the Capitol and see what they're doing. This guy happened to be a member of the West Virginia Citizens Defense League, which is our homegrown Second Amendment lobbying group. It's grassroots. There's not a single paid member of the organization. So I went down there with them just as a regular member of the organization, watched what was going on, and came home mad. And then, my wife asked me what I was mad about, and I told her. And then a few days later, I was involved with another organization that is calling for a convention of the states under Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution to amend the U.S. Constitution. A couple of amendments I'd like to see is the 16th and 17th Amendments rescinded. That would be a great thing for everybody, I believe. But anyway, that's a different story. So I'm interested in that idea, and I'm a member of that grassroots organization. We go to the Capitol, and I actually watched the lead sponsor of the resolution for this particular piece of legislation. I watched him say to the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, look, a lot of people back home really care about this, so I have to put on a show. I have to act like I'm really fighting for it, but I know you're going to kill it. Go ahead and do that. I really don't care. I was standing about 3 feet away, and I heard him say this, and I thought, this is how this really works. This is what really happens. These votes don't mean anything. It's all predetermined, right? And I got pretty mad. I've got friends who gave everything they had for the Constitution because they believed in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay, and I mean everything they had.
Their life.
Yes. And I got back home. It takes me 5 hours to get home from Charleston. I got back home, and Julie, said hey to me, and she said, oh, now you look, what are you upset about now? And I told her what had happened. And she said, well, I understand why you're angry, but do something about it or, get over it, one of the two. So I ran for delegate. And I'm not originally from West Virginia. I grew up in Louisiana, but I moved up here because, I came here for a girl. Julie.
Same here.
And she's absolutely worth it. I would, I'd give up a lot more than just moving to another state. She's amazing. But anyway, so I ran for delegate. I'm not from here. West Virginians are very leery of people who come from the outside, and I understand why, but I did not come here to run for office. I came here to be with Julie and to, establish a life here. And then they started poking me in the eye. So ran for delegate, not from here, had no name recognition, had not been involved in the party. I was a registered voter and I was voting, had been a Republican for over 30 years, had no money, no organization at all. And I talked to a friend of mine from church and said, hey, would you be my treasurer? And she said, sure, I'll figure it out. I don't know how to do it. And I literally drove around my district knocking on doors, asking people to vote for me. I said, hi, my name's Marshall. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm a combat veteran infantry officer. I was a missionary in the Amazon jungle, and I will take a bullet to the face to secure your natural rights because I will do whatever it takes to make sure that my children can raise their children in a free country. Would you please consider hiring me to be your delegate? And they said, sure. And they did. And I served one term. Yeah.
But see, when I was growing up, that's what we had. We had people knocking on our door all the time, all grassroots stuff, and we knew what they stood for because they ended up having debates. Yeah. And right now, it seems like you say, it appears as though there's only two parties to the general public anyway, and neither party is interested in letting us know what they stand for.
No, and what they want you to do is they want you to donate to your party because it's your party. They want you to do what your party tells you to do and to vote for your candidate because it's your candidates. Do you realize that Melody Potter, for the 2020 election, when Jim Justice announced that he was running, he'd already switched over to Republican. He'd been elected the first time as a Democrat. And then he switched over to Republican. And then in 2019, I guess, he announced that he was going to be running for re-election, which, by the way, he told me on television he was not going to do. He actually said this on television, and I applauded, and he got mad and called me an 18-carat ass. This really happened. You can look it up. It happened in Berkeley County, West Virginia. But anyway, he announced he was running for re-election as a Republican, and Melody Potter stood up in front of the world and said, that's our candidate. I said, there are at least 5 other people who have signed up to run, 5 other Republicans. How can you, as the chairman of the West Virginia Republican Party, say that's our candidate? We don't know who our candidate is yet because we haven't had the primary election. Well, that's the kind of garbage that goes on nonstop. The first time that I announced that I was running for delegate, John Overington and a couple other folks came over to me and said, look, man, what we really need is for you to just get behind the candidate we've already picked. I said, who's already picked? Well, we have. I said, oh, you mean you a couple of dozen people here in this room? Here's the funny thing. You're not the Republican Party. You're just our lackeys. The Republican Party is the registered voters, the people who pay the taxes, the people who've chosen you to do our business. You're not in charge. And they just stared at me. And I said, you don't even know what I'm talking about, do you? I said, let's have this discussion in May. They said, in May? Why in May? I said, well, it's called a primary election. Let's have it in May and see how this discussion goes. You guys stay here in this room and talk to each other about it. And I'm going to go out there and talk to the people who live in my district, and we'll see who is actually chosen by the people to be their candidate. And gosh darn it, I was. It was really weird. Everybody was really shocked and angry about it. But they honestly believe that it's their job to choose your candidate for you and shove that candidate down your throat. You know, I know of at least 4 or 5 situations where people signed up to run in districts they don't even live in and got elected.
Yeah, I see. There's a lot of fraud going on. Marcia,
Yes.
there's another thing that's been happening that we've discovered, and it's not really big news, but it bothers me because, you know, a lot of these trial lawyers, they are making huge donations.
Hey, Joe.
The judges
Joe,
running
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Can I interrupt you real quick? I know I've already interrupted you 47 times, but my wife just posted a comment here, and I know a lot of other people are posting, but it's my wife. So she says, you did not finish your sentence. You served 2 terms. So that's my wife, Julie, and she wanted to make sure that I covered that. And when Julie speaks, I listen. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Not a problem. How do you feel about the concept of trial attorneys donating to judges that they'll be in front of at some point in time? It's
completely unethical.
Completely
Absolutely
unethical. And you know, even like the I believe it's the new prosecuting prosecuting attorney here. She had some major players, you know, donate big bucks to her campaign. Now, if they have a client that comes before, you know, her, she's going to more than likely be more lenient.
It's human nature. All men are corrupt. And when I use the term men, I want everybody to understand, I'm talking about the human creature man. So every iteration, male, female, tall, short, whatever, every man is corrupt. And as Lord Acton told us, power tends to corrupt. Absolute power, in other words, unaccountable power, tends to corrupt absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
So if they're not accountable, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead, Joe.
You know, growing up, you know, we always had corruption, but now it's more obvious.
People are corrupt.
They're more corrupt, and of course, you know, as a pastor, you know, in the last days, it talks about, you know, it being this way, but living through it it's like, my God, they're so obvious about corruption. They don't even care if they get caught because the next level up.
Because what are you going to do about it?
There's no accountability.
Because what are you going to do about it?
Exactly. Nothing, because you can't, because whatever level you go to, they're still they're all in the fix.
Right.
So meanwhile, as citizens, we're stuck here trying to navigate through the system. I almost feel like a gerbil, you know, running around in that round thing. The faster you go, you're still not making any headway because they don't give you anything to work with. They're cheating, they're just cheating.
Oh, it's far worse than that. They're not just cheating.
Of course it is.
They are robbing you at gunpoint of your life and your liberty and your property. They are robbing you at gunpoint.
Literally, they get the police involved.
Yes.
So
yes, literally.
They'll have you arrested. I've already experienced being arrested for just exercising my First Amendment right.
Government is nothing but force. That's all it is. It's not wisdom. It's not compassion. It's not goodness. It's not righteousness. It's not even ethical. It is simply force. And the only way it can be ethical is if the people involved in it are ethical. And the only way that people can be ethical is if they recognize and subscribe to and support a particular ethic. And the ethic that is supposed to be working, the ethic upon which the U.S. government and the subsidiary governments, actually they're not subsidiaries, but the whole federalist system is supposed to function is, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the government. That is the ethic of the U.S. government. Anything that's contrary to that is unethical according to that ethic and must be expunged. Those people must be held accountable. I don't care what other ethic they think they're following. That is the ethic of the U.S. government.
And that's the number one complaint that people make is accountability. Every single case I come across, they wish people were held accountable, because at the end of the day, when they're not held accountable, you lose your family.
Yes.
You lose your liberty. You lose your entire way of life because someone is not held accountable. So if you became governor, what would be the very first thing you decided to do? What would you do right out of the gate, day one?
I would conduct an audit of every single department of the executive branch, every single function. Yes, that's day one. That's the first thing. And I would begin it with CPS. And why would I choose CPS? Why would I begin with CPS? Because the people there can't speak for themselves, because the subjects of the actions of CPS are incapable of speaking for themselves.
And that's true. That's why we opened up Watchdogs, because I'm telling you, there's a lot of people that they can't articulate, what they really want to do. And a lot of them are they're very angry.
Well, I'm talking about children, but yes, I agree with you on that point. But there are a lot of people who are angry about a lot of things the government's doing. But if they're adults, we have to start with the kids, the ones who are completely incapable of explaining themselves or standing up for themselves.
Absolutely.
We'll get to the adults, I promise, but we need to start with the kids.
Well, look, if you make a child's life better, then it's just going to be automatic that their parents' lives, their family's lives will be better, because if you get rid of the corruption, all parties involved in a family situation will benefit.
Yes, sir. And a blow for freedom anywhere is a blow for freedom everywhere.
Absolutely, across the board, man. So, have you ever aspired to be anything other than governor in terms of politics? Well, you were already a delegate, so.
I have aspired to be a guy who drinks coffee and reads books and maybe writes a book or two. That's what I aspire to be. And I don't mean to be obnoxious about that, but seriously, that's what I want to do with my life. But there's a mission right now. I didn't want to go to Iraq, but there was a mission.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this, but there's a mission, and it supersedes what I want. What I want is not important.
Are there any politicians throughout history, especially in our lifetime, that you're proud of? I mean, for me, my family was a big Kennedy fan. We were big Democrats, so I didn't know much about politics back then. I was just a little boy. But is there anyone that you aspired to, or that motivates
George Washington and Calvin Coolidge.
Okay, you're going real old school, huh?
George Washington and Calvin Coolidge. I could talk about George Washington all day. As a matter of fact, Julie, my wife, when I first moved into the Capitol as a delegate, she printed out a statement by George Washington that said, "I would hope that I have the capability to become that greatest of all things, an honest man." And it sat on my desk as I voted in the House. And I had to look at it every time I reached over to pick up my microphone to talk or to push the button to vote. And she was good enough to print that out for me, and she had it laminated, and it was sitting right there. Calvin Coolidge, because he understood that his job as president was not to be in front of everybody all the time saying all kinds of words and putting on pretense. His job was to be the chief of the executive branch, to run the executive branch according to the Constitution and the applicable laws, and to leave people alone. Calvin Coolidge. You got to love the guy.
Are there any modern day politicians that you fall in line with that you could think of? that you lean more toward one than the other? Because you have to put together an administration at some point in time.
Sure, I
So-
do, and I'm already working on it. I've got people waiting in the wings to jump in and start doing stuff.
So you're already prepared for that, huh?
Well, I mean, I know how to run an organization. I've done it a million times. I've run large organizations, executing complex operations in dangerous environments. That's what I do.
So
But
if you became, would you like fire a lot of people right out of the gate, you think, or it'd be like
I don't know how you define a lot.
what
But
Elon Musk did? He just got rid of like 2/3 of his crew.
Well,
Well,
actually, here's the thing. What I would do is replace the senior people, and I would choose people or have chosen people who, when I put them in position, they will actually execute those functions. They will make changes within their organizations.
Yeah, because
I'm not going to go fire some clerk as the governor.
No.
What I will do is fire the clerk's boss's 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 boss, and have that person impose regulations and, or rather policies on his department that he expected everyone to live up to, and then he would counsel them, train them on those policies, and if they refuse, then they would need to find somewhere else to excel, because they're not going to excel in my administration when they refuse to perform according to the standards of the Constitution, fiscal responsibility, the laws that govern their department, good personnel actions, and customer service. If they can't manage that, then they're not going to excel in my administration. So we'll offer them the opportunity to go excel somewhere else.
But so if elected, would you give an individual, a high-ranking individual to fall in line with your way of doing things before you let them go, or just?
Absolutely. What's the point of hiring a subordinate leader who won't function within your paradigm? That's one of the most foolish things you can do.
Yeah, you would be as guilty of,
Yes.
that kind of stuff, and people you try to replace.
Look, I don't use any principles for choosing personnel other than who can and will get the job done most efficiently and effectively. I don't care about anything else. I'm not going to go out looking for people who look a certain way, or who go to a certain church, or who anything other than understand the requirements of this job according to the Constitution and according to the principles that I've laid out, and will execute it to serve the people of the state of West Virginia as fervently as they can, and understanding that the people of the state of West Virginia own them.
How do you feel about energy in West Virginia?
I think energy is a great thing. How do you feel about energy?
It's necessary in the state of West Virginia. There's no doubt about it.
I'm sorry, I'm being a little smart aleck. What's the actual question?
It's kind of a weird question, because you have some people that, especially my Democratic friends, that really think energy is a form of evil.
Well,
it's just.
Here's my basic take on it. I'm sorry, this is what I should have said instead of being a smart aleck. I was trying to be amusing, but I failed. So here is my basic idea. All forms of energy should be available to whoever is willing to invest the time, effort, capabilities, and resources into developing them. All right. So what I mean here is, we can't say we're not going to have wind, we're not going to have solar, we're not going to have coal, we're not going to have natural gas. What we need to say is, sure, if you want to do it, go for it, but there aren't going to be any government subsidies. On the other hand, if you make a mess, you are personally, individually accountable for it, Mr. CEO, Mr. Operations Officer. If you kill people, if you poison their water supply, you personally, not your corporation, there's not going to be a fine that your shareholders have to pay to keep you out. You personally will be held accountable for your actions, your decisions that led to this damage to this town, to these people's lives, to their lives. Actually killed them. You're going to be held accountable for that. And that's fine, but within those parameters, you're paying for it, and you're responsible for the consequences. Go thou therefore and create energy, and make a lot of money while you're at it. Create all forms of energy. Find, discover, put them into use. Build new, interesting, innovative things that function off those forms of energy that you've created. But don't you hurt anybody, and you pay for it.
That's fair enough.
I think that's the way it should be with everything.
What would you do specifically to bring, more employment to the state of West Virginia?
Well, hang on just a second. I'd like to back up and say a little something about energy that will lead into that question, if that's all right. So what I would not do is I would not take $290 million out of your pocket and give it to Bill Gates and the Chinese Communist Party to develop a company that will then actually has the stated intent of destroying the fossil fuel industry. That's crazy, right? Nobody would ever do that, except that your Republican supermajority in the West Virginia House of Delegates, the West Virginia legislature, and your West Virginia Republican governor just did that. They wrote a check for $290 million out of your pocket and gave it to Bill Gates and the Chinese Communist Party to build a business in the Northern Panhandle with the stated intent of destroying fossil fuels, the fossil fuels industry. What I'm saying is, we don't subsidize anything. We don't overregulate. We don't try to prevent people from making it in the business. Government doesn't get to choose who fails and who succeeds. Government is here to protect your rights and otherwise leave you alone.
Yeah, and they're billing that facility as something that's going to facilitate a lot of jobs. So,
no. First of all, it's not a lot of jobs, and secondly, the ones that they need are not exactly the sort of people you're going to find hanging out in West Virginia looking for jobs. Mm-hmm. Most of those require a great deal of education and training, and I'm not saying that West Virginians can't acquire that. They're not stupid. I'm just saying there aren't a bunch of people with those qualifications sitting around twiddling their thumbs right now, waiting for someone to pop up and hand them a job. It's really going to be a bunch of people who come in from out of the state.
Especially out there. It's like in the middle of nowhere. Artificial intelligence is going to be, it's a really big issue these days, especially, internationally. There's certain states where artificial intelligence are actually taking over a lot of middle-class jobs. How do you feel about that? Robotics?
Well,
and things
I think any increase, first of all, artificial intelligence as a concept, and then the fact that a lot of people are losing jobs to them, those are really two separate issues. And I don't mean to equivocate. I'm not splitting hairs here. I'm just saying that, are we talking about the concept of artificial intelligence, or specifically that idea that using it will cost a lot of people their jobs? Because what we're talking about is it taking jobs from a lot of people. So every time there's a technological revolution, every single time in the history of humanity, there have been people who lost jobs, and then there have been people who gained jobs at a higher level. All right. So we used to tow barges down the towpath on the C&O Canal, right? And then we developed machines that actually would push the boats instead of people towing it or people driving animals that were towing the barges. And then we developed railroads. So the towpaths completely went out of use. So no longer were there any boatmen on the towpath, and those guys all lost their jobs. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm just saying you're not going to change that. That's what happens, right? So we will always need plumbers. We will always need electricians. We will always need carpenters. I don't care how much AI you got. AI, right? AI cannot fabricate the materials that we need to actually build things. And I can hear the people out there right now who are saying, well, actually, AI can run the machines. Yes, I get it. But the thing is, there will always be people, who know how to do things, right? People will always need to know how to go to the bathroom. People will always need to go to the bathroom. So what I'm getting at here is that we have to understand these things are going to happen, and we have to deal with them. You've got McDonald's that's using an ordering system that completely bypasses the people who work the cash registers. I personally think they're making a mistake, because a big part of the experience is, well, it used to be when I was a kid. Of course, it's changed since then. But, it used to be walking in, talking to somebody who's like, hey, man, what can I do for you? Let me get you a Coke. And now it's just you push a button and, there it is.
You order your food at a screen most of the time, and boom, or
Yeah,
you could
yeah.
order.
Well, I mean, and food. It's not like that's even food, but anyway, I think that it's just another technology we're going to have to learn to deal with.
Yeah.
Now, I teach. One of the things that I do when I'm not running for governor is I teach online at Liberty University in a master's program. And one thing I'm going to have to be on guard against that I'm not prepared to deal with, I don't know how to deal with this. I have to figure it out, is dealing with AI produced papers, because my discipline is very paper intensive. It's a lot of analysis, a lot of theory, a lot of writing, a lot of discussion, and I mean, I have to figure out how to figure out when someone is, they're just dumping a bunch of words into an AI, and then this something pops out, and they're kind of like, yeah, that's good enough, and throwing it on the screen.
They're doing it in the court system now. In fact, they're having a lot of problems. A lot of these attorneys are using artificial intelligence to make up their briefs, and they're not even close to being legal. They're missing all kinds of legal,
Well, you remember what I said about individual responsibility?
Yeah.
If people aren't doing their jobs, they need to be fired. And if they have licenses or certifications and they're not doing their jobs, they need to lose their license or their certification. I don't know why that's hard. That's pretty clear to me.
Yeah, they're getting really lazy. Well, listen, Marshall, this is an hour-long program. We're at that hour point. Why don't you tell the people what what your goals are, and just reiterate what you could bring to the table as governor.
Okay, well, my intent is to ensure that my kids can raise their kids in a free country. And I've done the battlefield analysis, and I figured out how to make that happen. The way that that's going to happen is that we recompel the government to function according to the Constitution. In other words, we shove it back into that box, into that mold. And the only way that's going to happen is if we have a chief of the executive branch who is willing to sacrifice everything else he has to ensure that that happens. He won't have any friends. He won't have any support. He'll probably have somebody who wants him dead, and that's okay, because he loves his kids so much that he will do whatever it takes to make this happen. And that's me. That is my intent, and I don't care what it cost me. And if you'll note, my wife just posted here our link to our website. Thank you, Julie. You're always looking out for me. That's our website. You can get a hold of me there. You can volunteer to help out the campaign. You can send us a few bucks if you've got them. Of course, most of my supporters don't really have much cash lying around. I don't have people coming from D.C. to put $10 million into the campaign like what's his face does, Pat. He's got all these nameless, faceless people giving him millions of dollars, and I've got Bob and George and Sue and Larry who are donating $5 and $10, and I'm grateful. I really am. But we will squeeze a nickel out of every penny you give us.
Well, Watchdog Family Protection Services, we're looking for candidates just like you. We really are. We've been searching hard and wide, and you're the first actual individual we've interviewed that's running for office. I wish we could figure out a way to call out the other candidates to have a real debate amongst all of you. I think the people of the state of West Virginia are entitled to that. They're entitled to know what you stand for, and more than they really need to know what all the candidates stand for. And that's going to be our goal in the very near future with Watchdogs. Is we're going to try and focus in on getting your message heard. So if there's anything we could possibly do for you that you haven't already done, I know we're running out of time because November is right around the corner.
Yeah. Well, what I need is for everybody here to spread the message, and by that I mean get on my social media, spread the things that I post. Tell people about me. Get a hold of the campaign team and volunteer. They will absolutely give you. They'll give you signs. They'll give you cards. They'll give you T-shirts. They'll give you a mission in your area, something that needs to be done in your area. I don't do that because I can't keep track of all of it, but we've got this great team who will do it. Go to the website, get a hold of them. If you can give a few bucks, that's wonderful. But right now, what I really need more than anything else in the world is for the good people of West Virginia to demand a debate among all five of the gubernatorial candidates this year. Demand it. I tell you what, you put us up on a stage and you will see the quality, the mettle, the intent, and the character of each member of that group of people who are running for governor. And it will change the world for you once you see us all up there together. But you've got to demand it because they don't want to do it.
That's the key, ladies and gentlemen. That's the key. You need to know who you're voting for. You need to know what they stand for. Because if you did, most of my friends who vote, they vote party lines. That's what they do. They're not voting for Kamala Harris. They're voting against Donald Trump, and the opposite is true. That's not how you vote. You vote for someone that you believe can help your situation out, make your life better for your family, because that's what it's all about. Generational, freedom is being attacked right now. And I'm a grandfather. I'm worried about my granddaughter because this system right here, it's so horrible. I can't believe she's in this world right now, but I love her to death. I want to stay here, but my God, and it's getting worse. So I'm going to encourage everybody out there, at least my followers. I'll be getting on Facebook and trying to figure out what happened with my website. Believe me, I'll be doing that right away. And we're going to go ahead and figure out a way to get this podcast on there. But we will be calling your office, and Watchdog Family Protection Services officially endorsing Marshall Wilson for governor of the state of West Virginia, because we believe he's what we need to fight with CPS. So it's as simple as.
I want to thank all of y'all for investing your time into this discussion today. I know you have other things to do. I'm profoundly honored that you were willing to listen to what I had to say, and you gave me a chance to say it. And I really appreciate you, Joe. Thank you for your time.
We're working on a bigger forum for you. Believe me, I'm pretty boisterous. Been a little quiet tonight because I want you to be able to talk your thing. But believe me, I'm a lot more boisterous than I made out to be today, because I'm usually, very talkative. But I wanted you to get your point out there today. I believe you did. And we are going to work on something where we can figure out some way to get a debate going, because without a debate, we're sunk.
Yes, sir.
We need a. So I promise you, I'll be getting a hold of your people tomorrow, and we're going to have to work something out where we get something a little bit more aggressive than just a single podcast. Okay?
God bless y'all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to go press leave here and take care.
Y'all take care. Thank you.